Voice in the air, 12th century. Make of my body the beam of a lute, and of my head the sounding gourd, of my nerves the strings, of my fingers the plucking rods. Clutch me close and play your 32 songs of, O Lord of the meeting rivers. I don't know anything like time beats or meters, nor the arithmetic of strings and drums. I don't know the count of iamb or didactyl. My Lord of the meeting rivers, as nothing will hurt you, I'll sing as I love. Like a monkey on a tree, it leaps from branch to branch. How can I trust her? Believe or trust this burning thing, this heart. It will not let me go to my Father, my Lord of the meeting rivers. You are a blacksmith. You are a blacksmith if you heat the iron, a washerman if you wash clothes, a weeper if you weigh the warp, a Brahmin if you read the Vedas. False are the stories of the divine birth. The higher type of man is the man who knows himself. The crookedness of the serpent is straight enough for the snake hole. The crookedness of the river is straight enough for the sea. The crookedness of our Lord's man is straight enough for our Lord. In some post-colonial critics, A.K. Ramanujan, whose modern translations on the volume Speaking of Shiva brought Basava and other Vachana poets back to life in the English language, gave an overly modern interpretation of those poets' work, betraying them almost as individual dissenters in the Protestant mode. It's a caution worth considering. Yet in many translations, the Basava's verses speak of struggle and self-doubt and of his anti-establishment devotional community, which believed in direct service to God, not to political or priestly power. In this, some see Vachanism as a strand of the bhakti tradition, one of India's most powerful religious forms of popular social reform and change. See as in Kabir and Mirabai. Bhakti was a periodically resurgent tradition that motivated a deep devotion like the Vachana poets, the Bhakti saints.
It sounds like Bhakti.
Bhakti.
We were reading from the honest.
Bhaka and Bhaka. Bacchus.
It could be related.
Bacchus and Bhakti?
The god of wine in Greece.
Well, the words could be or derived from.
The Greeks were related to the Indians.
Their followers rejected the idea that God could be assessed only through the Sanskrit uttering Brahmins. Instead, they spoke proudly in India's common everyday languages. The name Bhakti comes from the word bhaja, which means to share. Now, is that similar to Bacchus? To wine, to share wine. And Bhakti worship often took congregational forms quite different from orthodox rituals. Bhakti could be a hard path. Interesting that Bhakti could be a hard path, even as Basava. We're talking about the poetry here of Basava. Cajoled people into finding their own personal relationships with God. He was candid about the psychological anguish it caused when a 12th century follower chose to estrange him or herself so arrogantly from social convention. There was usually no going back. Quote, "Don't you take on this thing called bhakti. Like a saw, it cuts when it goes, and it cuts again when it comes." Does bhakti cut you? The flow of the Krishna River. I didn't know there was a Krishna River. The flow of the Krishna River has now been altered by the Almatti Dam. Oh my goodness. Completed in 2005, which submerged many of the fields around Kudalasa Gama. Yet the engineers managed to save Basava's Samadhi. The Samadhi is his burial place, his last resting place, and even gave it an added mystery. At the bottom of the deep spiral staircase, well, about 40 meters below the Sangam, where the two rivers join, is a canopied memorial where people come to pray and make offerings to Basava. Today, the memory of Basava and his teachings is maintained by a substantial religious community called the Lingayats. To what might have been Basava's consternation, they function as a caste group with their own internal hierarchy. There are some 7 or 8 million followers concentrated in northern Karnataka. The name Langatyat comes from the lingam, in this case a small polished stone or phallic symbol symbolizing Siva, which members of the community wear as a pouch around their necks. Though the religious minority, they are a force in Karnataka's electoral politics. Near the end of Basava's life, his radicalism proved his personal undoing. In challenging the social and political order, he took a step too far and sanctioned an intercaste marriage. The marriage was to join 2 children from his community of followers, a boy born an outcast and a girl born a Brahmin. The orders from this offended king were brutal. Members of the wedding party had their eyes gouged out. Their bodies were trampled by elephants in the streets. Rioting ensued as Basava's outraged followers ignored the Guru's pleas not to turn violent. But before long, the king was murdered. The Siva community was scattered and broken. Basava fled the city. His death came shortly thereafter. This episode is the subject of a play, Taledanda, by Girish Karnad. He explains, I wrote the play in 1990 when there was a caste riots going on in North India. It seems absolutely relevant because many of the issues are issues that are still alive today. We see the whole idea of equalitarianism of caste, everybody being together, was beautiful in theory. Everyone loved it, but what happened is that they made the mistake of putting it into practice. And a Brahmin girl was married to a lower caste boy from the cobbler community. Now if it was the other way around, it's okay. So an upper caste boy can marry a lower caste girl. The Brahmins were allowed to marry women from lower caste, but this was unthinkable. And there was a tremendous reaction against this wedding. The whole movement came to an end overnight just like that because of that one wedding. It's a very fascinating episode because it could happen today. It's still very raw. That's what makes Basava's vachanas so relevant. In some of his vachanas, Basava notes how arbitrary the gods can be at the end of a man's life. No number of rituals or generous deeds could guarantee favor because the gods would do as they damned well pleased. Still, he mused about his inability to curry last-minute favor with Siva in the royal way by furiously building temples as a Raja or King of Kings might do. Does Basava sound worried, though? It's as if he has known the answer all along, that in exceptional cases like this one, words outlast the great instructions of kings. The rich will make temples for Shiva. What shall I do, a poor man, do? My legs are pillars, my body the shrine, the head of a cupola of gold. Listen, O Lord of the meeting rivers, things standing shall fall, but the moving ever shall stay. He read from Basava, The Voice in the Air, 12th century. A poet, translated mainly by Ramanujan. Have you read all of Basava? Here we're reading from Incarnations, A History of the India in 50 Lives by Sunil Khilnani. We're reading about one of the 50 people from India.